The way of the cross. As our Lenten journey draws closer to the Passion of Christ, we take some time to pray together the way of the cross. This is a traditional devotion in honor of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. It calls us to remember the suffering of Jesus. As we listen and pray together, we use this time to stop and reflect on each step Jesus took to the cross. We ask Him to inspire and give courage to carry our crosses and reach out to others in love. Jesus is condemned to die. Pilate asked him, "Are you a king?" Then Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. I was born and came into the world for this one purpose, to speak about the truth." Jesus was not intimidated by Pilate's power and the lies of the people. Jesus had spent his life standing up for truth and justice. He wasn't going to stop now. It is nerve-wracking when we call to stand up for what is right. It is tempting to say nothing, especially if ours is a lone voice. But if we fail to speak out, we feel uneasy because we know we are not being true to ourselves, to the person God calls us to be.
Are there times in our lives where we have not defended others and have abandoned them in their time of need? Please join in the prayer. Lord, help me to remember that when I stand up for fairness and truth, I am never alone. You are before and beside me, strengthening me always.
Jesus carries his cross, and when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him. Jesus was used to being pointed at. He didn't act like other people, he didn't fit in, he was different. But many had admired Jesus' new teaching. Now things were beginning to change. In just a few hours, Jesus was mocked and rejected by almost everyone. It is a terrible feeling to be mocked and rejected. It eats away at our self-worth. We doubt ourselves and ask, "What's wrong with me?" But often the answer lies not with us, but with the offender.
How can we acknowledge God's presence within each person? Please join in the prayer. Lord, when I am mocked or bullied, help me to seek to understand and forgive, so I might never fall into the trap of bullying others in turn.
Jesus falls for the first time. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young people stumble and fall, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. It must have taken a while for Jesus to adjust to the weight of the wooden cross. His first steps would have been unsure, made worse by the push and shove of the jeering onlookers. Without help, he was bound to fall. Whenever we enter a new stage of life, it takes a while to adjust, starting a new school, moving to a new area, growing into adulthood. It's easy to stumble as we try to work out where we fit and whom we can trust.
Do we need to try and persevere more and not give up so easily on things and people in difficult times? Please join in the prayer. Lord, guide my steps as I journey through life. When I stumble and fall, may I always remember that you are ready to pick me up and encourage me to walk tall.
Jesus meets his mother. God sent the angel Gabriel to a young woman named Mary. The angel said, "Peace be with you. The Lord is with you and has greatly blessed you. You will give birth to a son and name him Jesus. He will be great and called the Son of the Most High God." The words of the angel must seem like a distant memory for Mary. Her hopes for her son now appear dashed as she sees Jesus in pain, dejected and humiliated. Since his birth, she has cared for him. Now, as he carries his cross, she can do no more than watch. It can be difficult for our families to watch as we become more independent and struggle with life's challenges. They worry we might make the wrong choices. Sometimes this hurts all of us, but we know that, whatever happens, they love us and want the best for us.
Who in your life is there to support you when you need some help and guidance? Please join in the prayer. Lord, remind me that love costs and to value it above all things. Foster in me a loving, grateful and humble heart, ready to listen and grow.
Simon helps Jesus carry his cross. As the soldiers led Jesus away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Simon didn't want to get involved. He was just trying to pass through the crowd and get on with his day. But he was picked out and forced into helping. He did, and it changed his life forever. Sometimes we turn away when we're asked to help. We feel there's little we can offer, or we're afraid we'll make fools of ourselves. But the world is changed by people stepping forward to do whatever they can to share the burden of another.
What are some ways we can support our brothers and sisters in our communities and around the world as they carry their own personal burdens? Please join in the prayer. Lord, help me to trust that when others ask for my help, they believe I can make a difference. Give me the courage to step forward and get involved.
Veronica wipes Jesus' face. The king will answer them, "Amen, I tell you. Whatever you did for one of these brothers and sisters of mine, even the least of these, you did it to me." Little is known of Veronica. All we are told is that she stepped from the angry crowd to wipe Jesus' bloody face. It is often said how brave she must have been to do this, but maybe it was her sense of compassion that was too strong to stop her offering the little care she could give. Compassion means we feel the pain of another deep in our hearts. It allows us to identify with their struggle. It can cost us tears, make us feel small. Yet it can motivate us to step out of our ordinariness to help ease the world's suffering. It is a gift to all.
Are we bold enough to go against the crowd and make friends with someone who is unpopular and unloved? Please join in the prayer. Lord, foster in me a compassionate heart, brave enough to share another's pain, humble enough to shed a tear, big enough to shelter their hopes, ready always to care.
We are often troubled but not crushed, sometimes in doubt but never in despair. There are many enemies, but you are never without a friend, and though badly hurt at times, we are not destroyed. The wood of the cross and the people's rejection must have weighed heavier and heavier on Jesus' body and heart. It must have been ever harder to go on as he stumbled through the streets of Jerusalem. Sometimes life delivers a series of blows and we feel as if we can't take any more. It is then we recognise the value of resilience. Resilience is the ability to recover after setbacks. It is strengthened by faith that no matter how low we feel, with God's help, we can rise up again.
Are we a good example for others to follow? Please join the prayer. Lord, remind me when life is hard, that you never leave me, to face my difficulties alone. Help me to see that you work through others, picking me up and restoring my strength.
Jesus meets the women of Jerusalem. A large crowd of people followed him. Among them were some women who were weeping and wailing for him. Amongst the jeering crowd, there was one group of women who refused to turn their back on their friend and teacher, Jesus. They withstood pressures to deny him or run away. Although it made them outsiders, their faith in him remained steadfast. It can be difficult to live out our faith when the world around us doesn't. We can feel pressured into fitting in by not wanting to stand out. It takes courage to remain faithful to a way of life and to support others as they follow their chosen path.
Are we ready to respond to the needs of others with love and compassion? Please join in the prayer. Lord, help me to be faithful to my friends, to my family, to my beliefs. Never let the pressure to fit in prevent me from standing out.
Jesus falls a third time. Our enemies have no reason to gloat over us. We have fallen, but we will rise again. We are in darkness now, but the Lord will give us light. Jesus has almost reached the end. By his third fall, many will have considered him a failure. How could someone who performed miracles and awed thousands now look so weak and hopeless? The world has always prized successful people, but the lesson of the cross shows me that it is human to fail. With God, however, I can't stay down. He lets my failures teach me to be humble, resilient and forgiving, not just of my own errors, but those of others too.
Do we give up when things get tough? Please join in the prayer. Lord, there are so many reasons as to why we fail. Lack of effort, lack of support, lack of belief. Help me to give witness to the truth, that with you there are always fresh starts.
Jesus is stripped. The soldiers took Jesus to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull, and divided his clothes amongst themselves, throwing dice to see who would get which piece of clothing. After falling under the weight of carrying a criminal's cross, being jeered at and considered a failure, Jesus' dignity is now stripped away further as the soldiers take his clothes and leave him naked. We know we are made in the image of God and that we have an inbuilt dignity that deserves the utmost respect. Sometimes we don't act in a way that is worthy of this. When we don't respect ourselves by our words and actions, or when we fail to acknowledge that others have their God-given dignity too.
Do we need to think about and change the way that we communicate and act with others? Please join in the prayer. Lord, open my eyes and my heart that I can see your image in all around me. Give me the courage to stand up for the dignity of every person, including myself.
Jesus is nailed to the cross. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals. It is difficult to know what caused Jesus the greatest suffering, the physical pain of being nailed to the cross, or the cruel injustice inflicted on him by others. The cruelty we see in the news and in our community can make us feel sad and confused. How can some people be so mean? Why doesn't God do something? Then we remember, God did. God made us.
How can we live in compassion with those who do not have access to basic human rights? Please join in the prayer. Lord, may I never forget that with each kind word and merciful act, I help to create a culture of love that counteracts a culture of hate. Remind me that my love makes a difference.
Jesus dies on the cross. At about 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Then with a loud cry, Jesus breathed his last. It is shocking to think that at this, his darkest hour, even Jesus doubted the Father's presence. Shocking too for those gathered to watch. Is that how it ends? Have God and goodness gone? It can be unnerving when someone we look up to begins to doubt themselves. We expect them always to be sure, to inspire and guide. Should we now doubt them as well? Or should we remain loyal and help restore their faith?
How can we be a modern day disciple that will follow in the footsteps of Christ? Please join in the prayer. Lord, help me to stay faithful in the darkest of times. When others lose hope, give me the grace to help them find it.
A request was put to Pilate by Joseph of Arimathea that he might take away Jesus' body, and Pilate gave permission, so he came and took his body away. Joseph of Arimathea was a follower of Jesus. Unable to prevent his degrading death, Joseph and a few other loyal followers now do all they can to ensure Jesus is finally treated with dignity and care. It saddens me when cemeteries are vandalised. It suggests that the dead are no longer worthy of respect. But Christ taught us that life is changed when we die, not ended. So we'll continue to pay our respects as best we can, because love and dignity never ends.
How can we follow in the footsteps of Christ and live a life of service and compassion? Please join the prayer. Lord, may I always pay my respect to those who have died and support those who left grieving through prayer, a visit, and acts of care.
Jesus is laid in the tomb. There was in the place where he was crucified a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had yet been laid. And so there, because the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus. It is apt that Jesus' tomb was located in a garden, a place where the cycle of death and new life is witnessed as the seasons pass. When they laid Jesus in the tomb, his followers had no idea of the new life that was beginning to rise, a life that would change all time. We are so used to seeing suffering and death in our world. The news appears to report nothing else, but the lesson of the cross teaches us to keep our eyes and hearts open for signs of new beginnings. God's love and light are always at work, especially in the darkest times.
Are we ready for the love of Christ to shine through? Please join in the prayer. Lord, open my eyes to notice beauty in the world, kindness in people, love all around me, and your risen Son everywhere. What was a simple act of love? Going to the tomb has turned into an event, a truly life-changing event. Nothing remains as it was before, not only in the lives of those, but also in our own lives and in the history of humankind. Jesus is not dead, he is alive. He does not simply return to life, rather, he is life itself, because he is the Son of God, the living God. Jesus no longer belongs to the past, but lives in the present and is projected towards the future. We need renewal, a renewal of passion to allow God's grace to work within us. We look forward to Easter Sunday and celebrating Jesus rising from the dead and stepping out of the tomb.